So here we are at Kimchi 101. This is a recipe that I've, for the most part, taken off the internet, but definitely with a few additions to my own based on my experience. But this is the starting evening here. This is all we need the first night. We have our head of Napa cabbage, probably about 2.5, 3 pounds. I don't know, medium size. Got some daikon radish. I may not use all of this, but what I'm starting with. I have rinsed this off, and I have rinsed this and also scraped along it with a spoon to take off any brown spots on the skin. I'm going to trim the ends off, and I'm going to quarter the cabbage, and we'll come back. And the cabbage has been quartered, as you will see, and I have trimmed off the ends of the daikon radish there. I will chop this cabbage horizontally, also removing this core of the stem there, and I'm going to slice the daikon radish into some thin slices. I'm going to slit it first in half and then do that, and we'll come right back. So I have cut the cabbage up into the size you see I'm working with there. For the most part, knife down, I have to wash that. For the most part, that's about the size I'm looking for. I'm going to do that all 3 times. This was the core that I cut off on the end, and I'm going to leave behind. Yep. A few quick tips. Typically, with the quarter of cabbage, I will reach in a little bit and pull out the center, so to speak, and then I will split. You can almost say an eighth, but I don't go all the way up. And then when I cut this, I'm not getting too small pieces up front, but I'm getting a nice small chunk down here where it gets nice and thick in the stalk. And this is going to allow for the salt to really saturate well, a lot of surface area, and speed up the process of the brining. And here we are down to the last quarter of the cabbage. Like I said, I pulled the center out, slit it, and I'm just going to chop it all. Our bowl is filling up pretty well, and we'll do the radish next. One thing is always keep your area very sanitary. Kimchi, because it's going to ferment, you don't want to expose it to any type of bacteria that you don't want in there. So I always give the table a good sanitizing first with a bacterial cleaner, and nice and clean. Okay, all cabbage has been cut in the bowl. The next step is going to be the brining. I'm going to do something a little untraditional. So we're going to brine at a ratio of a tablespoon of salt per cup of water. I'm going to mix in a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons actually first, and kind of give the cabbage a toss around. Now I'm going to account for that. I will add water for those 2 extra tablespoons of salt. We'll get to that here shortly. But I want to get the cabbage to just start wilting and drying out on its own at this point. And here's the brine. So that is 4 tablespoons of sea salt, and I use just the garden variety, Morton salt, Morton natural sea salt, not iodized, all-purpose. And then 4 cups of just room temp water, basically. I'm going to let that salt dissolve. I'm going to dump it in here, and then I'm going to add 2 cups of fresh water to compensate for the 2 tablespoons of salt that we already added to the mix. Getting the last of the salt water on there. So right now we actually are at 7 tablespoons of salt total and 7 cups of room temperature water. And at this point, it will cover it. I'm going to put a plate on top. First though, we still have the daikon radish to deal with. So we're going to let this sit for a minute here while we cut the daikon. And as far as the daikon goes, I've slit in half, laid it flat, and I'm cutting like around a 1/8 inch slice. I know it looks a little bigger than that, but ideally 1/8 inch, no bigger than a quarter. We want the salt bill to permeate once again and draw the moisture out. Now I like radish in the kimchi, so this might be more than some people would add for a whole head of cabbage, but that's what I'm going to add. So I will get all this on to the top of the cabbage, which is now soaking in the salt water, and get these spread out. I'm actually going to then sprinkle about a teaspoon, 1 or 2 teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon at the most, of salt, of sea salt onto the surface of this. And we're going to, as you can see, the water is being drawn on the cabbage, and it'll keep coming up on the level here. And there we have it. That is the cabbage, the water, and the daikon radish. I'm now going to actually cover it. Try and the water keeps coming up as it keeps leaving the cabbage. But basically, I'm going to get all the cabbage and radish submerged in this salt brine. I'm going to tuck these loose pieces underneath here once I get off here off the video. But leave this out overnight, 4 to 8 hours. It's not going to do any damage to leave it out about 8 hours. So I'm going to put this in and then head to bed here fairly soon. In the morning, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to double wash this. I'm going to drain it carefully, fill it with water once again, swish it around, wash it, drain it, and at that point we'll be ready for the sauce. Okay, to the kimchi sauce. That is the cabbage from last night. That has all been salted, nicely limp. The radish as well. These are the raw ingredients. The ginger, ripe apple, ripe pear, yellow onion, white onion, bulb of garlic, and there are some anchovies here. We will drain those, and then of course we have the red pepper. Okay, and here we have the pepper as well, Korean red pepper. These 3 are going to go in the blender, as well as the drained anchovy. We're going to grate the ginger and press the garlic. We will chop the green onion, but that will be coming after. We're not going to blend that. So I've taken the red pepper and added it to the cabbage. I've actually ended up putting a little bit more in, so it's almost a full cup. So I will toss this in until everything gets a nice coating. And here is where we now sit. So the red pepper has all been worked in. The piles you see up there now that is all the ginger. I shredded, grated on a small grate. That is the full bulb of garlic that has been minced and thrown on top. And that is the bundle of, or I should say pressed, excuse me, I pressed the garlic. And then a bundle of green onions, which I chopped, as you can see. I went as high up on the green as I thought would work. Would look fresh and good. And here we have what will be now the final steps for the sauce. As I was saying, the steps for the sauce. We have the pear cord, for the most part, apple cord, the white onion, and the can of anchovies. Here we have all the ingredients in the blender: anchovies, apple, pear, onion, about a 3/4 of a cup of room temp water. We can thank Ruby Tuesday for this blender. And there it is. Pour it right on top. I know it looks great, huh? Kind of a fish applesauce and pear sauce and onion sauce. And then we're going to stir that in, and the kimchi will be done. And done. Now that is the standard, raw, totally unfermented kimchi. Put that in a glass jar, pack it in, use a spatula or a tongs or something to get all the air bubbles out. Bring it up right near the lid, not quite there, leave a little room for air, and cover it, seal it. Leave it out tonight for about 24 hours, and then throw it in the fridge. And you can start eating it. It's going to be at its prime probably in about a week or 2.